Hey, welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show, where the truth isn't neutered, liberty doesn't get declawed, and the political fat cats, they get their fur all ruffled up. I'm your host, Conservative Cat, scratching through the litter box of Illinois politics, so you don't have to. That is the goal of this show. Go ahead and support the program by visiting theconservativecat.com. You can support program by visiting the patriotpumpenergy.com and buying a bottle of pre-workout. It's premium pre-workout, good stuff. It's an alternative to energy drinks. We don't try to load you up on caffeine and sugar. There's extra ingredients in there that work with the caffeine to provide you long-lasting energy that's real and is not addictive. There's no added colors to it, artificial colors. It's premium stuff. And you get $10 off with promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. It's the best promo code out there. PatriotPumpEnergy.com. Be sure to visit today. Always send super chats in the comments. I take your comments throughout the show. We've got a lot of stuff to get to today. So Trump did it again. Did Trump do it again? He's making America great. He forced Cracker Barrel, and I don't think that this is a coincidence. Within 8 hours after he, made Truth Social, he put it out there on social media that, hey, I want you to change your logo back. And then within 8 hours of him putting that out on social media, Cracker Barrel does it. They made a huge announcement after this epic backlash, and within a couple of days of this epic backlash, and I told you, it's biblical. The Bible talks about tradition and keeping tradition, and not tearing down your, tearing down legacies of your ancestors. So it's biblical to appreciate tradition. And of course, Cracker Barrel, spit in all of our faces and spit in the face of tradition when they changed their logo to a boring, feminazi looking logo that's modern and sleek and has no life. They're putting the old timer back into the logo, and this is an epic announcement, huge announcement, and thank you, Donald Trump. He made Cracker Barrel great again. We are also going to be talking about T-Swizzle. Taylor Swift, she just ended feminism with one word. Yes. So I am not about the celebrity drama. I'm not really into pop culture. But this definitely is going to have a lot of cultural impact. And Taylor Swift is very popular among women, specifically left-wing women. And I think that her saying yes to Travis Kelce, she's engaged now. I think this is going to be huge, a huge culture shift that we're about to see. We've already seen it, especially with Cracker Barrel change their logo after Donald Trump, came out with the Truth Social post. The culture is changing. We are winning the culture war, definitely. And I do want to talk about this: efficiency or extinction. The truth about Illinois schools merging, and on its surface, you might think that it sounds great. Yeah, let's consolidate the schools. Illinois has more units of local government than any other state in the nation. And yeah, we should consolidate government. That sounds good. Until you realize, wait a second, everything that the Illinois government is in favor of, there's always the devil's in the details, right? And I'm going to be clawing through this law. It's now law. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed this bill that gives school districts money through a grant program through the Illinois School Board of Education. They are going to get money to kind of study consolidation. And I don't like it. Okay, so we're going to get to all of it. Did Donald Trump just do it again? Cracker Barrel announced, of course, after this epic backlash, from the White House, from Donald Trump himself, from customers, that they're going to be bringing back the old timer logo, and they are going to be ditching the rebranded one. Now, from what I understand, they're not going to be making any kind of changes to their restaurants either. Like, I'd imagine that their remodels are going to subside. They might remodel some Cracker Barrels, but I'd imagine that they're not going to go through with the remodels to a massive extent, right? They're not going to remodel all of their stores. In a statement to Fox News, the restaurant chain admitted it got the message loud and clear from their critics, and they're bringing back the tried and true logo that's been a part of the food chain since the 1970s. So they said this in the statement: we said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and will always be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and a kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution, now here's the good part about their statement: our 70,000 hardworking employees look forward to welcoming you at our table soon. Yeah, well, their stock took a nosedive, so they had to, kind of pull back a little bit here. They definitely, this is what Bud Light should have done. Like in the very beginning when they had the influencer Dylan Mulvaney have a Bud Light can on his face with his face on it, and he was marketing Bud Light on TikTok. Bud Light should have come out with a statement like this. It's very clear, very direct, saying like, hey, we are an American institution. I like that they put that in there, and that they are welcoming you back to their table. So good for the company. I am impressed. The company's dramatic reversal followed numerous days, a few days. I would say like it was only a few days. I wouldn't even say it's like a ton of time that this backlash was going on. It was only a few days. I know it felt like a week, but it was only really a few days. And there was backlash from critics over the woke rebrand. We know what this was. It was wokeness. And I told you that it stems really from feminazism, where everything changes to black and white. Everything's really dull and boring. And the reason why is because women typically are the consumer base. So McDonald's, they used to have like all the kids stuff everywhere, the playground or the playpen or whatever, and they took all of those out and they rebranded all the McDonald's to kind of look like these boxy. It also helps for commercial, selling the land, and it makes it easier to sell because then you can sell the building to pretty much anybody. If it's branded like a McDonald's and if there's a playpen in there, it's going to be harder to sell that building. So that's part of it as well. But the consumers, we're all women. Consumers make up a large part of the consumer base. And women were having children. They wanted to go to these places that were really decorated and fun. And they'd want to take their kids to places like that. But now with feminazism on the rise, we've changed. We've changed a lot of the interiors of places, even in our homes. Where women want to be a girl boss and CEO, they are very minimalist. It's almost an act of rebellion. I'm taking all of the color, all of the hominess out of the house, and I'm not making the house a home. I'm not doing decor or flowers or colors. We're doing black and white and everything very minimalist. And really, this is just a big screw you to men. And to, this idea that we should be serving the children as well in these places. So like McDonald's, this is all feminazism, really, at the end of the day. Social media users, critics, even President Donald Trump came out. He entered the fray yesterday. This is how fast this happened, okay? So he wrote on Truth Social, Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo. Admit their mistake on customer response, the ultimate poll, okay, admit their mistake and based on customer response, and manage the company better than ever before. They've got billions of dollars worth of free publicity if they play their cards right. Very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Have a major news conference today and make Cracker Barrel a winner again. So that's what he put on Truth Social. And to be honest, they, with their statement, followed Trump's guidance. They mentioned that, hey, we listened to you, the customer base. We are putting the logo, the old timer, back in our logo. And, like they have all this publicity now. And I'd imagine with that statement, people are going to be going back to Cracker Barrel in droves to show their support for changing their logo back, and their stock might rise a little bit. So Trump posted that yesterday morning, and by the end of the day, Cracker Barrel reversed course. I don't think that's a coincidence. Do you? So congratulations, Cracker Barrel, on changing your logo back. This is what Donald Trump responded after they made that statement. All of your fans appreciate it. Good luck to you in the future. Make lots of money, and most importantly, make your customers happy again. That seems like sound advice from the president. And I just love Donald Trump. I love the fact that we are living in 2025 where the president can tweet on a Tuesday morning, and then by the end of the day, he gets what he wants, and we get what we want. The more importantly, he's always fighting for the American people, and the American people spoke loud and clear that they did not like the changes. So I'm hoping that they don't follow through with, some of the other changes, the remodels, taking out the peg games. Like I said, that they were like literally taking out all of the peg games because God forbid you call somebody a moron on the peg game. Like if you were left with 4, it calls you a moron. And, you guys have played the peg games at Cracker Barrel. They were taking all of those away. And then they were, making it black and white and minimalist. And it was just, I hope they don't follow through with any other changes. And really what needs to happen, they need to take the alcohol out of there. That's when it started to go downhill. They were probably trying to make it, with this rebrand, something for a millennial feminazi, feminazi CEOs going out after a long day's work for a draft beer and a burger that costed $40 on a bar stool with black ceilings and no French fries, right, on the side. So we have a million places like that. We didn't need Cracker Barrel to be like that. In my opinion, I think that the next move should be to remove the alcohol, because really Cracker Barrel is supposed to be a place for the traveler. It's a roadside destination. And it's, supposed to be family friendly. I don't know why they introduced alcohol to begin with. So my advice would go a step further. I'd say, hey, take the alcohol off the menu. That's really when it really went downhill. I think it went downhill fast once they started serving alcohol. All right. Grab your coffee, folks. Sit down, buckle up, because news just dropped. That isn't just about diamonds and proposals. It's about politics. It's about culture, and it's about the future of America. Yes, you heard me right. Taylor Swift is officially engaged to this Kansas City Chief tight end, Travis Kelce. This is America's pop princess, and she has decided to lock arms with an American football player. So you're probably thinking to yourself, Kat, you're not much for celebrity gossip. I've watched the show. You don't really talk about celebrities or pop culture all that much. You're just not I never watched movies as a kid. I was never a pop culture person. My mom did not allow a whole lot. She was that basic Christian mom who did not allow a whole lot of television. I look back on it, and she was, protecting me from all the indoctrination. But yeah, I'm not much for pop culture. I just don't get any movie references because I didn't watch a lot of that stuff growing up. I read a lot. I read a lot of books. But celebrity gossip, we're going to do a little bit of it today. It's not gossip. It's just I'm witnessing, not a tabloid headline. You're not just witnessing another tabloid headline. This could be potentially what I will call a cultural earthquake. So Taylor Swift, she said yes. And this is going to have political ramifications for women, for men. And there has been an ongoing battle between conservative values and liberal narratives. Okay. So today here on the Conservative Cat Show, we are going to be talking about this engagement, how it's kind of shocked the world. Donald Trump even responded to the engagement, and he responded beautifully, by the way, of course. And it kind of shocked me the way he responded, considering his beef with Taylor Swift. But I think he knows that you have to respond to this in a certain way when you're a conservative in order for it to have the effect and the implications that we want. We want this to have certain cultural implications. And I believe that this will end the so-called war on men. Okay, this feminazi war on men. So let's start at the beginning. I'm going to take a sip of tea here. I'm talking real fast. My throat's like sore. I don't know. When the weather changes, it's 49 degrees out here in central Illinois. And we went from 90 degrees to 40 degrees. So yeah, my throat's a little wonky. So I'm going to start at the beginning here. Okay. Why did this shock the world? Because Taylor Swift, she wasn't just a singer. She's not just a pop singer. She is a Grammy-winning mega star. Okay. Her stadiums are packed. Okay. She is pretty much an institution. So she is the soundtrack to an entire generation of women, specifically a generation that's just outside of my generation. I would say, older millennial women. And she's really picked up a lot of popularity among Gen Z. Like young or the generation after me. So I'm Gen Z. Gen Z, it's really fascinating. My generation, we are fleeing towards more traditional values. Now we're kind of stuck in the middle here of the millennial generation. They're the lost generation. They're completely woke. And then you've got this generation who's coming up, and I don't know what generation they're called now, but the kids who are in high school now, I'm just going to call them the TikTok generation, okay? Because you know what kind of kids I'm talking about when I say the TikTok generation. So I'm kind of smack dab in the middle. I didn't grow up with TikTok, didn't grow up with social media until I reached about high school. And we saw our older brothers and sisters become woke and losers, right? And the millennials, and we want no part in that. We realized that, hey, they were sold a bill of goods that college was going to make you successful, and they wound up, bumming it in mom's basement. And Gen Z, particularly my generation, wants nothing to do, for the most part, with feminism, with liberal narratives. We want everything to do with traditional values. Okay, so this woman's very influential. Okay, like her, hate her, she's very influential. I'll give her that. Okay, I don't like her music. I never really have liked Taylor Swift. So she is an icon of women independence, female independence, and empowerment. Okay, so she's an icon. For years, Taylor Swift has played this part of being an untouchable, unlucky, in love superstar. Okay, for years, where she just, this war against men. She has played this part of being in a constant battle with men in her life. And every relationship that she's ever been in was doomed to end, and every breakup turned into a Billboard hit, and every guy was just another stepping stone in her independent woman saga. Okay, so then comes in Travis Kelce. He's big, he's masculine looking. I'm sure on the inside he's a soy boy, because let's face it, he's marrying Taylor Swift. Okay, but he's unapologetically athletic. He's a Midwest football star. I mean, by all appearances, you would say that's a man's man right there. Okay, by all appearances. Now, deep down inside, I think he's a little soy boy, because let's face it, he's marrying Taylor Swift, and you're marrying a feminazi, right? You're allowing her to go out there and act this way, play in politics, endorse Kamala Harris, so deep down inside, I think that he's a little soy boy. But by all appearances, he's big, masculine, unapologetically athletic, Midwest football stars. You would say, by looking at him, okay, that's a masculine guy. Now, all of a sudden, the girl who built her brand on heartbreak ballads, she said yes to marriage. Okay, so why is this so shocking? Because it completely upends the narrative that the left has been feeding women for decades, and that Taylor Swift has been feeding women for decades, that you don't need a man, and that marriage is a trap, and independence means being perpetually single. Okay, Taylor Swift just shattered that illusion, her own illusion that she's perpetuated for decades. She shattered that by embracing the very thing that feminism has mocked, which is settling down with a man who, by all appearances, leads, protects, and can provide. Okay, this is a successful man, can definitely provide for her with his millions that he's made in the NFL. Okay, if she wanted to quit singing tomorrow, they're married, she could quit singing tomorrow, right? She could quit tomorrow because of the millions she's made, but if she could rely on this guy, okay, and she's marrying a guy that, by all appearances, is masculine. Okay, so let's talk about the actual logistics of this proposal. The left is going to downplay this. Okay, but think about it. Travis Kelce, he planned this moment very intentionally, and it was very traditional. He chose this very elegant garden, proposed to her with a very traditional looking ring. It was a unique, kind of like antique looking ring. Okay, it was very traditional by all appearances. And he planned this moment very intentionally. This wasn't casual. This wasn't like them sitting on the couch in their, PJs, and saying, hey, you want to get hitched? He orchestrated a traditional, meaningful romantic proposal. That matters because in culture, we've embraced these kind of situationships where lifelong vows, he got down on one knee, right? Um, we have, in culture, replaced commitment with situationships, where these lifelong vows are not a thing anymore, and really people just cohabitate with each other. They live together out of convenience, and they live with each other until it's inconvenient. Okay, that is the way culture is now. We have these situationships. Travis Kelce did something that is countercultural with the way he proposed to her. He asked for permanence, he asked for forever, and he presented her in a very traditional fashion a symbol of covenant, not just companionship. Okay, so marriage is very serious. He did it in a very serious way, which tells us that he understands that marriage is very serious. Let me tell you something. That ring on her finger is not just jewelry. It's a statement. It's a statement that even in 2025, marriage still matters. So here's what we're going to hit today. Here's where the cultural and political ramifications start to come in. Okay, Taylor Swift has influence. Whether conservatives like her music or not, I don't like her music. I think it's terrible. I've always thought that it's awful. Even the good stuff, like from 2015 or whatever, when I was younger, I didn't even like that stuff so much. But we can't deny she has the ears of millions of women, okay, especially liberal women, okay, who follow her every move. It's cultish, it's bizarre. For years, the media has painted her as the queen of female independence, but now she's modeling something different. And she's modeling that it's okay. In fact, it's even desirable to want marriage, to want a man who's strong, who would be able to provide for her, who protects, is burly by all appearances, and like a man's man. And he publicly claims you as his wife. Okay, so this is something very different from what she's modeled in the past. And this is where conservatives like me have to step in, because for far too long, the left has been winning this culture war. They have been winning the culture war. Okay, and they've turned celebrities into political pawns. They've used Taylor Swift to promote Democrat talking points, abortion access, LGBTQ ideology, you name it. She is a political pawn. But guess what? Her personal life has just cut across her politics, and she might still lean left. I'm not saying by any means she's conservative just because she's getting married. She definitely is probably going to lean left and always lean left her entire life. But she just sent a right-leaning message that marriage is good, masculinity is good, covenant is good, and millions of her fans just saw this. So let me be blunt. Liberal women are going to have to wrestle with this, because the Taylor they idolized just made a pretty conservative move, the most conservative move that a woman could make: marriage to a strong, competent, for all that Travis Kelce is. I think deep down he's soy boy, but by all appearances, he's able to make money, and he's strong, and he'd be able to provide for it, right? So the political fallout. Conservatives have this opening because for years, young women have been told that feminism and progressivism is the key to happiness. Get a degree, get a job, get an apartment, get the independence, right? That's what liberal women have been told their whole lives. And where did that leave them? Lonely, anxious, wondering why they're not fulfilled. Taylor Swift just modeled a different path, one that actually lines up with a biblical truth. By the way, Genesis says it very clearly. It's interesting. The Bible ends with a marriage and begins with a marriage. In Genesis, all the way in the beginning, it is not good for man to be alone. God designed marriage as a foundation of family stability and flourishing. And I'm not saying that Taylor Swift is about to lead a conservative revival. That is not at all what I'm saying. But culturally, this is a turning point. Liberal women might just start asking themselves, if Taylor Swift can embrace marriage, maybe I can too. And conservative women, well, we've been saying this all along, and Taylor just gave them the cultural "I told you so." We're us, the conservative women are sitting here, and we're just like, oh yeah, like I told you so, Taylor. Like everyone wants to settle down with a real man and wants the covenant. Okay, that is just, man isn't supposed to be alone, woman isn't supposed to be alone. So finally, let's talk about the war on men. For the last couple of decades, through Taylor's songs, by the way, men have been mocked, diminished, sidelined. Masculinity has been labeled as toxic. Fathers have been portrayed as idiots in movies and in sitcoms. Boys have been medicated for simply being boys. ADHD medication, labeled ADHD. They've been medicated for simply being boys. But here's the thing. Travis Kelce just became one of the most celebrated fiancés in America. Okay. Why? Like I said, he's unapologetically athletic. He definitely looks strong. He projects leadership, and he's a Midwest football player. And Taylor Swift, arguably the most influential woman in pop culture, chose that guy, right? She didn't choose like a string bean, soy boy, oat milk sipping latte guy. Okay. She chose Travis Kelce, who by all appearances is masculine. And when the most powerful cultural influencer of a generation validates marriage to a masculine looking man, the war on men is a lost battle. Okay. This is a very lost battle. Like, she just completely invalidated all of her songs by doing this. So the script is flipped, and masculinity, turns out it's not as toxic as Taylor Swift sang about. It's actually attractive, it's actually desirable, and it's essential. So what do we make of all of this? Taylor Swift saying yes to Travis Kelce isn't just celebrity gossip. It is a cultural moment. This is a chance for conservatives to rebuke feminism and rebuke feminism's empty promises, by the way. And this is a reminder that God's design for men and women still works. Even the most liberal people out there probably on the planet, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, God's design for them still works and still manages to happen. Okay. And that's proof that even in 2025, marriage still matters. Now, I don't know if Taylor and Travis are going to model a biblical marriage. I pray that they do. Whether they realize it or not, though, their engagement points to truths that are bigger than themselves. Right? There is a truth out there, and it is bigger than themselves, and it is the truth. And to conservative women listening, this is your moment to shine. You've always known that marriage and family matter. To liberal women listening, maybe it's time to ask yourself if the feminist script that you've been living by, if it's been working out for you, or maybe, just maybe, the happily ever after is found in God's design of marriage. So to the men out there, don't buy that masculinity is toxic. Travis Kelce proved that being a man still wins hearts. Okay. Like, by appearances, he's a masculine man. That still is winning the hearts of women, even a woman like Taylor Swift. So I'm Conservative Cat, and I'm reminding you that this culture war is never going to be over. We're always going to have to fight it. But today is a win. It's a cultural win for us. And Donald Trump, he didn't blast Taylor Swift for her engagement. He's actually really nice to her and called her a terrific person, which I'll get to later in the show. But I think he realizes that this could be a cultural shift, and that this is a win in the culture war. And I think that he, put their differences aside. Obviously, he and Taylor Swift have beef politically. She has endorsed his opponents. She endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, and then she endorsed Kamala Harris in 2024. So they're not really friends, but he came out and called her a terrific person, and he wished the best in their marriage. And I think that conservatives should come out and wish the best for them in their marriage. And we should celebrate this in that they are embodying God's perfect design and that happily ever after is actually found, even if you might not think it, in God's design and in marriage. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about school consolidation, school mergers. Okay. Now, if you don't know this, Illinois has the most units of government than any other state in the nation because we're corrupt. But is consolidation, is the state more specifically, should we task the state with consolidating? Because that's what Springfield is doing right now through this House bill that was just signed. It's a shiny new law that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed. It creates a government program or a grant program through ISB, the Illinois School Board of Education, to school districts. So they give them grants to study possible consolidation. So on paper, it sounds harmless. In fact, you might even be thinking to yourself, oh, Kat, that could save us property taxes. Save on property taxes if we consolidate the school districts. Well, if you haven't figured this out yet, if you haven't been listening to this show, the devil's in the details. Okay, we have got to claw through this because believe me, if Governor J.B. Pritzker signed it, it most likely sucks. So I'll be right back with that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we claw through the lies and we lay out the truth. No filter, no fluff. I'm your host, Kat, and we're tackling the abortion debacle today, but this time we're pulling back the curtain on abortion's ugly origin story. Let's talk about Margaret Sanger, founder of what would become Planned Parenthood. The left treats her like some sort of feminist hero, but they conveniently leave out where she was a eugenicist and she spoke at KKK rallies, and she wanted to, quote, weed out the unfit. Her words, not mine, folks. In a 1938 letter, Sanger wrote about her plans to target Black communities, and I quote, "We do not want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." Does that sound like they're trying to hide something, doesn't it? Planned Parenthood was built on this ideology, and Sanger didn't want to empower women. She wanted to control population growth, particularly among minorities, the poor, and the disabled, anyone she and her elite pals deemed less desirable. That's who she wanted to weed out. And guess what? The legacy still haunts the abortion industry today. Don't believe me? Look at the numbers. Black women make up about 13% of the population, but they account for nearly 40% of all abortions. You think that's by accident? No, ma'am. That's what's called targeted marketing and deception. They're marketing abortion to Black women. So while the media glamorizes abortion as freedom, let's be real. It started with a woman who thought freedom meant eliminating the weak. And while the left tears down statues of long dead so-called racists, they keep handing out awards named after Margaret Sanger. Hypocrisy much? The left is tearing down these statues, but yet they're handing out awards named after Margaret Sanger. Now, I know some folks are going to say, well, that was a long time ago, Kat, sure, but Planned Parenthood is still the nation's largest abortion provider. They're still planting clinics in these low-income minority neighborhoods, and they're marketing abortions to minorities. And they were raking in $500 million of taxpayer dollars, by the way, every year. And just until recently, President Donald Trump signed this executive order to end the federal taxpayer dollars to fund and promote elective abortion. The order recognizes that for nearly 5 decades, Congress enacted a little something called the Hyde Amendment. It's a series of additional laws to protect taxpayers from being forced to pay for abortion. That's what the Hyde Amendment does. Contrary to this longstanding common sense policy, the previous administration, Joe Biden, they dedicated all kinds of federal funding to elective abortion and a wide variety of government programs.
This isn't about women's health. It's about politics, power, and profit. The future, it's up to us. In a post-Roe world, gives us this chance to right historic wrongs. We need laws that protect the unborn, support women, and finally shut down the lie that abortion is some kind of virtue. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that the truth has claws and history doesn't lie. Margaret Sanger's past isn't just history, it's the foundation of a system that we are fighting today. Stand tall, speak out, and choose life.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate you being here. Support the program by visiting patriotpumpenergy.com. Buy your bottle of premium pre-workout. It's on the shelf behind me right now. You can use promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. It's an alternative energy drink. Definitely not loaded up with caffeine and sugar. We're not trying to get you addicted. We're trying to provide you long-lasting energy. Okay, today we are tackling a story that looks on the surface like definitely boring. School consolidation in Illinois. I know. But let me tell you, it's anything but boring. It is a story of how Springfield politicians are hiding behind words like efficiency and savings, and they are quietly undermining local control, threatening small town vitality, and they are setting up our kids for nothing really, just to be pawns in a state-run system. They're already doing that, but it's going to get much worse if they start consolidating. You know, and I've had different positions on this because we do have the most units of local government in any other state in the nation, and I've had different positions on this in the past. After looking at this bill and Governor J.B. Pritzker signing it, I know that their intentions here are not good. So it's a shiny new law. Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed it, House Bill 2966. It creates a grant program for school districts through the Illinois School Board of Education to study. Let's do a study. Let's take a bunch of taxpayer dollars, give it to the school districts. Not that they're getting enough money. Okay, property taxes in the form of property taxes. Most of your property tax bill is going towards your local school district, by the way. It's not like they weren't getting enough money. They have to take your state taxpayer dollars too, in the form of grant, in order to study the possibility of consolidating. So on paper, it kind of sounds harmless, right? But with most things the Illinois government touches, the devil is in the details. We've got to look through the details. What looks like efficiency could be the death of local communities, could be the death of local schools. It's all about big government getting bigger and centralizing. So what looks like savings might just be smoke and mirrors. So folks, this isn't just about school districts. This is about the survival of small town America and rural America. So what exactly does this bill do? 2966 House Bill gives school districts a grant to study the possibility of mergers. So like merging school districts together. Lawmakers claim that this is going to save taxpayer dollars by eliminating redundant administration. Okay. After all, I'm all for that. Why should there be multiple superintendents that could do the job of just one person? We're paying these superintendents very handsomely, in some cases, $200,000. I mean, it's absolutely insane. These salaries that these superintendents are collecting, not to mention the pensions. Okay, so once they leave the school district, they continue to receive exorbitant pensions. So that's the pitch. Okay, so Republicans, Democrats have, in a bipartisan way, come together on this bill. But here's the problem. Illinois politicians rarely will tell you the whole truth. And I'm here to tell you the whole truth. Now, he is former Representative Jim Nolan, who's a Republican. And he has studied consolidation extensively, and he has talked about how savings are often illusory, like an illusion. This is a total illusion because you might cut a superintendent or two and then you consolidate. But here's what happens. You wind up raising teacher pay across the board. Okay, so they'll consolidate, but they will demand that their pay goes up to the highest district, or like to that district with the highest pay. So for example, I don't know, okay, some of you listen from Bloomington Normal, okay? So let's just say Unit 5 and District 87, they talk it out, and then they talk about consolidating, okay? So they consolidate. What will happen is, okay, maybe a few administrators drop off, maybe not. Maybe they just all kind of consolidate. And you're still paying, a few superintendents, and you're still paying all of these administrators. Maybe a few administrators get canned, and we can consolidate and kind of save taxpayers money on the administrative costs. But here's what's going to wind up happening. District 87, I'd imagine they pay their teachers slightly less from the last time I checked. What's going to wind up happening is those District 87 teachers, when they consolidate with Unit 5, they're going to demand the pay of the Unit 5 teachers, okay? So it's never going to be this case where the teachers take the lower pay of the districts that are consolidating. They're going to take the higher pay of the districts that are consolidating, if that makes sense. Okay, so you might cut one or two superintendent salaries, but you also raise teacher pay across the board to the highest district involved. Suddenly, costs don't go down, they actually go up. Okay, so they are pitching this as efficiency, as savings, cost saving to the taxpayer, but we all know what's going to wind up happening. Most likely, they're not going to cut a single superintendent. Okay, they're not going to cut a single administrator, and they're just going to consolidate these districts, and they're just going to be bigger schools. Okay, it's the classic Illinois bait and switch: promise efficiency, deliver bureaucracy. Okay, so Nolan, he shared a powerful example. There was this little tiny community in Ohio, which is north of Princeton, Illinois, where about 20 students attended a high school. Okay, outsiders looked at that and they said, hey, that's not very efficient. You're running an entire school, paying these people, and there's only 20 kids. You need to merge with a bigger school. Well, what happened when the community actually voted on it? They said no. Why? Because for them, that school wasn't just a building. Okay, it's the heart of the community. There's football games. You lose not just the classrooms, but you will lose the Friday night lights, your hometown identity. Okay, and you're going to be losing the glue that kind of holds that town together. I hate public schools. I think that we should get rid of all of them, and we should all just home educate our schools as the Bible demands. But I can't deny that school districts or schools in the community, they have created a hometown identity. Do I think it's a good thing? No, our identity should be in Christ and in Christ alone. I tell you guys all the time, my high school, they had a slogan, which was really like sort of cultish. There's like mascots, and then they have this slogan. It's bleed black and gold, which is just very like almost cult vibe, right? No, I bleed red, and I'm a human being, and my identity is found in Christ and in Christ alone. But I can't deny that there is definitely a sense of community around a school. And I'm not saying it's like the worst thing. There is definitely a balance. I think that it's become sort of cult-like, where the family unit revolves around kids and their athletics. Okay, so everybody's running around frantically trying to get kids to soccer games, to football games, to cheerleading competitions, and we're all not, talking together as a family unit. And I think that it's become perverted, like everything. But when you look at this thing, the communities are not going to be happy about this. The small little town of Ohio, this was a little school. They like the school. This serves, people in their small town, the school does. And really, it's the glue holding the town together. So let's pause there. That is something that Springfield elites really can't understand, is like a sense of community. They will never understand it. To them, school is just another line item and a way to funnel money to their pals and to people who didn't want to go out and, work in the actual private sector. And, this is just a line item to them, schools. To a community, school is very important. There's Christmas concerts, there's the basketball team, the alumni banquet. So, and I'm not saying any of that is wrong. It's become a perverted sense of community, I think, in a lot of places. But there are generations of kids that have walked through the halls that their parents walked through, that their grandparents walked through. So there is a sense of tradition and legacy and community in these schools. And to completely dismiss that and force at a state level these schools to consolidate is wrong. The left loves to talk about community, but they're the first to destroy it in the name of efficiency. And it's not even going to be all that efficient. Like I said, most likely they'll consolidate and keep all the administrators. And in fact, they'll probably pay the teachers the higher pay. They'll give the teachers the pay raise. The school that actually consolidates or is absorbed, they're not going to pay the teachers the lower district pay. They're going to pay them the higher of the districts involved in the consolidation. So let's be fair. Sometimes consolidation does make sense. Okay. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense at all. Nolan himself, Jim Nolan, he's a former rep, he pointed this out. LaSalle County, there are 7 or more grade schools that feed into one high school. Okay, that's the LaSalle Peru High School in Illinois. That's 8 districts, 8 superintendents, okay, 8 sets of rules, and the kids are arriving at this high school with wildly different foundations and educations, okay? So there you could probably argue, yeah, we should probably streamline this. Why are there 8 different grade schools that feed into one high school? It's a little outrageous. Fine, but here's the key. Those decisions should come from a local level. They shouldn't be mandated from a state level, from Springfield, and families and voters should get to decide, not bureaucrats, okay? Not these school boards or these school administrators. You know that they're going to be taking this money from this bill, the grant program. They're going to be making these decisions behind closed doors of what schools are going to consolidate, who's going to get paid what, and you don't get to decide at all as a voter. And I think that they should put it to referendum like they did in Ohio, north of Princeton, and the voters should get to decide what makes sense for that community. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this whole savings myth. I touched on it a little bit. I don't think that there is actually going to be savings because, let's face it, the devil's in the details. Let's be honest here, okay? Illinois is not in the business of saving you money, okay? This is a myth. The pitch goes like this. Oh, we're going to cut overhead, we're going to cut waste, and we're going to save money. But every study on consolidation shows that if you cut in one area, you increase costs somewhere else. So the salaries are going to get higher. There's going to be bigger transportation costs. There's going to be expanded bureaucracy. Most likely, they're not going to cut administration. They're just going to consolidate it. Okay, so it's just going to be these mega schools at this point. Okay, that's what I think that the state of Illinois is headed towards. And we all know what that is. It's socialism. So let's be honest. Illinois, when has Illinois ever saved money by consolidating the government? Okay, they always promise tax relief. They always promise property taxes won't go up. They promise that, pension costs are going to shrink. They never do. They never shrink. They always go up. Okay, and families never see the benefits of consolidation. They've done this at municipal level in some places, and what winds up happening is, say like a small town, a township government, they consolidate with the county government. Okay, well, the township road commissioner, okay, he wasn't getting paid. He was a volunteer. But guess what? The county, they pay their road commissioner and they pay their snowplow drivers, okay? So the road commissioner, we were saving, on taxpayer dollars. He was going around, or the snowplows, they were going around and plowing all the roads. He was doing it on a volunteer basis. But you consolidate, now that guy is getting paid a taxpayer funded salary. So we're never going to see the benefits. We're never going to see efficiency or savings. It's all myth. Okay, so why push consolidation? I'll tell you why they're doing it. It is to make government bigger, not smaller. It is to centralize control and to create more power for Springfield at the expense of parents, school boards, and small towns. So you want to get rid of this whole problem that Illinois has, which is that we have the most units of government per capita than any other state in the nation, okay, which is problematic because it's very expensive. And we don't need that many units of government. But we definitely don't need the state coming in and consolidating and creating a big daddy government like mega schools, okay? We don't need that. What we need is open enrollment, school choice, Okay, in Iowa, they've got it. Parents can send their kids to a neighboring district with the money flowing, following the student. Okay, so that's school choice. And, naturally, if we allowed school choice to flourish here in the state of Illinois, naturally, you're going to have districts closed down that aren't good, because if a kid loves music and they've got a great music program, you can send the kid to the music program or to the school with the good music program. And then this next door school is going to be like, well, man, a lot of people are going there for the music program. Maybe we should up our game and maybe we should build out our art program or our FFA program. If your daughter wants to go to a strong FFA program, you pick that district. And the districts that don't have strong programs will eventually be phased out, and we will have less units of government naturally. So school choice is a way to consolidate government. It's a way to get rid of all of these units of government that aren't really necessary. It's a way to get rid of it without artificially allowing the state to come in and centralize it and consolidate it and make it big. And this is competition. This is choice. School choice. That is liberty. Okay, but you know what? That terrifies the Illinois political class, because in open enrollment, it shifts the power away from the bureaucrats and back to the parents. The parents get to decide where their kid goes to school and what kind of education they get. And they can't, this is something that Springfield fears more than anything. Parents making choices for their kids, and that's why they'll happily, give these grants to study consolidation, but they won't touch open enrollment. They won't touch school choice because school choice exposes failing schools and the unions that are propping them up, by the way, those failing schools up. And, we got to look at this from a Christian worldview. Okay, so take a step back for a second. And let's look at this from a biblical perspective. Scripture reminds us that as parents, not as the state, we are responsible for raising our children. Go look at Deuteronomy chapter 6. Education belongs to the families and to the churches. And, I am not a public school advocate. I think that we should get rid of them, all of them, right? And I think that we would, if school choice were allowed to exist, a lot of it would probably be wind up pod teaching, these smaller schools where these programs are allowed to flourish. And I think naturally we would get rid of mass public education if school choice were to become a thing. And charter schools, I feel like slowly but surely public education would be obsolete. But, we cautiously give the education to the civil government. And in my opinion, biblically, I don't think that we should be giving it to them at all at this point, because they've proven what they've done, that they will flip that order around. They don't think for a second that you are in charge of raising your children, which is what the Bible teaches us to do, that you are in charge of your children's education. Illinois flips that order around. The state claims authority over your children. They dictate the structure, and then they tell communities what's efficient in their eyes. Okay. And this is why local control matters, because when you strip schools away from communities, you're stripping authority away from the parents and from churches. And really, the parents need to be in charge of their kids' education. And once it gets huge like that, okay, and I'm telling you, like, it could be 10,000 kids, right, in one school. Like, if they're, thinking about consolidating school districts, and the state is probably going to be making these mega schools. And there's going to be tons of administrators. And most likely we're going to not save any kind of property taxes on the administrative cost. Most likely the teachers are going to get all kinds of pay raises because they work in a big school. So let me paint you a picture, okay? And really, God's design is local, okay? Small communities, his design is relationships, small communities. That's how kids flourish. Small, the smaller you get. I mean, as small as your siblings and mom teaching you in the home, okay? That's where kids truly start to flourish, the smaller you get. And that is what consolidation threatens. That is exactly what consolidation threatens, the smallness. So let me paint you a picture, okay? Springfield, probably is imagining this and they're drooling over this. A giant mega school, okay, 10,000 students, and, a board of superintendents who are perched up at the top, and they are on their golden thrones ordering teachers around like little stormtroopers. Okay, this is like something that Springfield and Illinois is drooling about, thinking about. Every student rides the bus for 3 hours each way. We're keeping the kids in school longer. We're keeping them on the buses longer. And they'll call it efficiency. Okay. They'll say, oh, this is efficient. Of course. They're still going to raise your property taxes. Of course. The administrators are probably going to get pay raises, right? It's just that maybe a few administrators get cut when they consolidate initially, for the press releases. And they'll say, oh, well, we're saving the taxpayer monies by cutting some of these administrators. But guess what? The administrators who are overseeing this school of 10,000 students, they're going to get pay raises. And then across the board, the teachers are probably going to get the pay raises. Okay. And yeah, you've got fewer mascots, to keep track of. One mascot, one identity, one government approved vision of education. I mean, it's starting to sound like socialism, isn't it? It should. This is socialism in a football helmet. Okay, like they think they're pulling a fast one over you. And on its surface, Republicans, they sponsored this, by the way. Republicans sponsored it pretty much. I think that it almost got, I don't know if it got unanimously voted. Let me double check that. But a lot of Republicans voted for this thing. And on its surface, you might think it's a good thing. Yeah, we have way too many units of local government. I want to save money on property taxes. That is not what's going to be happening. House Bill 2966. It was sold as harmless, but make no mistake, it is another step towards centralization of education, another threat to small towns, and another swipe at local control. We don't need bureaucrats handing out grants to study consolidation. We need parents to be empowered to choose. Okay. And we need school boards that have a biblical vision, and we need communities that fight for their schools and fight for, good things to come out of these schools. So Illinois, they do have a problem with too many schools. I will say that we have too many low units of government. It's just getting out of hand. But that's because we don't have school choice. If we had school choice, that would naturally get rid of these units of government that aren't necessary. People just wouldn't choose them. Okay. And, remember this, folks. Strong communities make strong families make strong faith, and strong faith is the only thing that can rebuild this nation. I do have to take a quick break, but you are listening to Conservative Cat. I'm going to be right back. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel while you're here. And we are going to be talking about a few things at a state level: cashless bail, the disaster that is, no cash bail, and Trump cutting the funding, and Pritzker doubling down on the Safety Act, the Pretrial Fairness Act. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he gave out $2 billion in taxpayer subsidies, of course, to this fertilizer company. And it was a fertilizer company. He loves corporate welfare. But guess who really is getting screwed? It's the farmers. So he's going to present this as if he's like all about farming and all about agriculture. No, the farming community does not like you, JB. And your little press release about, this fertilizer company does not change how the farmers feel about you. All right, I'm going to be right back. Hey, you're listening to the Conservative Cat Clips. This is the place where we don't call 911 first. Nope, we pray, we prepare, and yes, we pack heat. Every time there's a tragedy, the media and the Democrats, they start crying, do something, and do something. And what they mean is more laws, more bans, and more restrictions, not on criminals, mind you, but on law-abiding citizens. So let me tell you what evil doesn't care about. They don't care about legislation. The man willing to break the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder, doesn't blink twice at your AR-15 ban. Okay, he doesn't read your gun-free zone signs. He sees those signs and he says, this is an invitation for me. Gun control doesn't stop evil.
It disarms good people. The founding fathers didn't give us the Second Amendment so we could go hunting. They gave us the Second Amendment to protect ourselves against tyrants, both foreign and domestic. And newsflash, tyrants don't tend to announce themselves. They come wearing smiles and waving around fancy policies. And I also want to talk about self-defense today. Self-defense. The average police response time in big cities like Chicago could be up to 10 minutes, sometimes even longer. I know the Chicago PD is really struggling with that. Response times in rural areas, it could get up to even 30 minutes response time. So if somebody kicks down your door, are you going to ask them to wait until the government sends backup to protect you, or are you going to protect your family and take matters into your own hands? So grandma, okay, in Peoria, Illinois, she is just trying to defend her property, but yet she's the one treated like a criminal. She has to go through all kinds of crazy background checks, permits, training. And the thug in Chicago, he gets the gun out of his trunk in an alley, and he didn't think twice about our laws, okay? It's about power. It always has been. Every dictatorship in history has disarmed their citizens first. First, that's Stalin, that's Hitler, that's Mao. They didn't want competition. And once the guns were gone, so were the rights, the freedom, and the people. So a disarmed people is a controlled people. But an armed, faithful, and free people, that is a nightmare for tyrants. And really, it's a blessing to your neighbors if you are armed. The Second Amendment isn't outdated. It's eternal. And just like evil, just like our right, just like the evil has the right to do evil things, and that they will, we have the right to resist evil and to arm ourselves. And the Second Amendment is pretty dang clear, shall not be infringed. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel. A little bit later, I think I'm going to address Valentina Gomez. So a lot of leftists have been, talking about Valentina Gomez, and they're like, oh yeah, Kat, this is very Christian of this woman to come out. I actually watched the video. She made it very clear that she was opposed to terrorist Muslims. Okay, so I'm going to quote her here. We're done turning the other cheek. Remember, David didn't pray for Goliath. He killed them. America is a Christian nation. So those terrorist Muslims, not just Muslims, but those terrorist Muslims can F off to any other of the 57 Muslim nations. There's only one true God, and that is the God of Israel. So what she says there in this clip, and really it's like kind of a really funny clip. She takes like a flamethrower. I'll have to find it. I'm searching on Twitter right now, actually. Gomez, flamethrower. I'm trying to find it. I don't know. They might have taken it off. No, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you really quickly. Oh, by the way, I told you that I'd look up those votes for House Bill 2966. That was all voted on unanimously. So you've got Republicans who are sleeping at the wheel when it comes to school consolidation. They are looking at this at a very surface level. They aren't looking at this as, hey, this is the state of Illinois trying to go down to one mascot, one identity, one government-approved vision of education, and they're trying to consolidate into these mega schools, which is socialism. Like this is evident that they're trying to shift towards something like socialism, and they're buying into that. Oh, it's going to be efficient. It's going to save taxpayer money. I don't buy it for a single second. And shame on the Republicans. It was unanimous, by the way, so every Republican voted for it. LOL. Wake up. You have to wake up. You have to be head on a swivel and understand what's going on here. So I wanted to address this just really quick. This woman, she's running for Congress. So she burned a Quran with a flamethrower for the whole world to see. And what she says in it, and I'm not for the language, okay, and I'm not necessarily even entirely in agreement with her, because this is something that I've had to face, and this is just personal for me. I actually was listening to a group of missionaries, and they said that even the Muslim people, they burned down these missionaries' church that they were building, and they burned it down, and they said that
we're working to try to even convert them to Christ and bring them to Christ and convert them to Christianity. And they are loved by Christ just as much as you and I are. Okay. And that's really hard for me to grapple with, being that these terrorist Muslims, they burn down churches, they throw gay people off of roofs, homosexuals, commit human rights atrocities, they behead Christians. And it's really hard for me to love my enemy. Okay. By all definitions of the word, terrorist Muslims are the enemies, the enemy of Christians. But on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talks about loving your neighbor, but also loving your enemy, which definitely I think made people's eyes like go wide-eyed and their eyebrows raised, and they were like, what are you talking about, Jesus? In the law, it talks about loving your neighbor. It says nothing about loving your enemy. And he says, well, even the tax collector, they love their neighbor, right? They love people who are friendly with them. We're called to be bigger than that, better than that. But I want to address what she does here, because I don't think that this is anti-Christian. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. She's running for Congress. Her name is Valentina Gomez. I think she's running in Texas. I'll double check that, but watch her campaign video here.
Your daughters will be raped and your sons beheaded unless we stop Islam once and for all. We're done turning the other cheek. Remember, David didn't pray for Goliath. He killed them. America is a Christian nation, so those terrorist Muslims can fuck off to any of the 57 Muslim nations. There is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel.
Gave my brothers a drink up, did everything but gave up. Stabbed my back, I came front. Still we win, we prayed up. Even when we die, we raise up.
I love this. Valentina Gomez for Congress. She's in Texas, the 31st, and she's powered by Jesus Christ. Okay, I love that video. She's done a few other videos where I've seen her before, and she like is jogging and she's like in a Kevlar type vest, or I think that's what you call them, Kevlar vest, and she's like running and she's got a gun in her hand and she's like, don't be weak and gay. I think that she's very powerful. And, you know, a lot of leftists will say, well, Kat, this isn't very Christian of her. How dare she? You know, we're called to love our enemies. Yes. But what did she say? I'm going to ask you, Christians, what did she say in that video that wasn't rooted in biblical truth? It is true that David killed Goliath, was an enemy, okay? It is true that she said, quote, terrorist Muslims can F off to any of the 57 Muslim nations. So there, I think what she's really talking about is how Israel is under attack by all of these surrounding nations, and they want a piece of Israel. They want Israel. Okay, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They want Israel. And what does that mean? That means the eradication of all the Jews. And she says that there is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel. So that is Yahweh, Hebrew for I am, right? And Allah is the God. And that's what that translates to in Islam. And there is a big difference between the God that they worship, which is a false God, okay? And that's just the truth. There is one God, and that is Yahweh, different from Allah. And their God that they worship, there is this idea that justice is yours. Okay, our God says justice is mine, saith the Lord. He is the God of mercy and justice. Hence this, crucifixion, okay, which was the ultimate act of justice and mercy. Okay, mercy in that he didn't kill you and I for our sin, God. He killed his one and only son, sacrificed his one and only son for our sin. And he did it in a very just way because sin has a price, it is death. And Jesus carried the weight of sin, our sin, quite literally carried the cross and was nailed up there and died insane death, was sweating blood. Okay. That's what happened. And this is a God of justice and mercy. This is Yahweh. The belief in Islam is that Ya Allah is a God of all mercy. Okay. But justice is yours. And what these radical terrorist Muslims have done is they've gone after Israel and they've tried to eradicate the chosen people, the Jewish people. And, Valentina Gomez, she burned the Quran with a flamethrower. She made a statement and she didn't say anything that wasn't biblically accurate. Okay. David defeated Goliath, who was an enemy, right? He was actually a Philistine, which, they're the Roman Empire. They took over. We talked about this a couple of days ago, where they took over Israel, and then they called it Palestine, okay, as a way to mock the Jewish people, because the Philistines were their enemies in the Old Testament during David's time. And when they had taken it over, they named it Palestine, okay, which isn't an actual place. It's where the enemy invaders, the Roman Empire, they took over, and they were mocking the Christians by naming this territory that Palestine. And they would actually call the Jewish people out of mockery Palestinians. Okay, so there is no real Palestine or Palestinian ethnicity or people. It is just the Jewish people were Palestinians. They were called that. So anyway, here I don't see anything really wrong with it. Is it inflammatory? Is it meant to get clicks? Yes. She is obviously being very performative. Am I totally for that as a Christian? No, we are called to love even our enemies. But let's be real, terrorism, okay, needs to be met with we don't mess around with terrorism, because they will cause death until you stop them, okay, by force and with violence. Okay, so nobody likes war, everybody wants peace, but sometimes war is warranted, and sometimes death is justified. Look at what David had to do with Goliath. Okay, he killed Goliath. So I don't think it's anti-Christian. I think it's inflammatory, and it's not exactly my cup of tea, right? Because we're called to love, and that doesn't mean that you get trampled all over and you let the Jewish people die and you let Christians be beheaded by radical Islamic terrorists. Okay, so she's making a statement here that Christians shouldn't just take it lying down. Okay, love is not the same thing as empathy. Okay, we're not called to empathize or sympathize with our enemies. We are called to love our enemies. And sometimes love is war. Sometimes, I know that sounds crazy, but, in order to prevent more death and more tragedy, sometimes war is warranted. I like, you can't let radical Muslims wipe the Jewish people off of the planet. Okay, you can't do that. So that is simply what she's saying. She didn't say all Muslims. Okay, she said terrorist Muslims specifically. All right, I want to shift gears. We're going to talk about cashless bail. That's where we're going at today. So today we're looking at one of the biggest frauds sold to the American people under the banner of fairness. This was the Pretrial Fairness Act. Okay, this was a big scam, and we know it well as Illinois' no cash bail law. Okay, Democrats call it justice reform, but really what it is, it's legalized lawlessness. Now, President Donald Trump just signed an executive order cutting federal funds from jurisdictions, that's us, with no cash bail. That means Illinois, the first state that went full-blown, full-scale, statewide cashless bail in 2023, is now in the hot seat. And let me tell you, it is about damn time. So let's rewind the tape. Back in 2021, the Illinois legislature, they passed the Pretrial Fairness Act, supposedly to level the playing field so poor folks weren't stuck in jail because they couldn't post bail. Okay. Now, on paper, that sounds all compassionate, sweet, and nice, right? But just like I was just talking about, we're not really called to empathize and sympathize. We are called to love. And sometimes loving people means, hey, you're going to be a danger to society and to others. And I love my neighbor enough to put you in jail so that way that neighbor doesn't die. Okay, so in 2023, when the Illinois Supreme Court let it take effect, it was challenged. The Supreme Court let it go through, obviously, because there's a couple of Supreme Court justices that were paid by JB. They let it take effect, and the result is exactly what everybody warned about. Hey, violent offenders are being let out onto the streets, and they're being let out onto the street before the ink on their arrest papers dry, essentially. So let me give you a story. Maybe you've heard of it before. Jose Luis Mendoza Gonzalez. He was charged with concealing a death, abusing a corpse, obstructing justice in the tragic case of Megan Boss. And under the old system, right, he would have been held until trial. Under the cashless bail system, he's released. And he just walked out. So he was later picked up by ICE. But imagine being Megan's family, right? Imagine hearing that the man accused of abusing your loved one's corpse is out there free because the system wanted fairness. Okay, that's not fairness. It's cruelty. It's not love. It's not really even compassion. It is injustice dressed up in woke robes, woke judges' robes. Okay, so not everyone is rolling over, though. Republican lawmakers in Illinois, like Representative Patrick Sheehan, who's quoted in the Center Square, he is also a law enforcement officer. He's sounding the alarm. Sheehan says, quote, talk to the victims because they're out here and they're real. So I want to share this with you. This is some tape. Enjoy.
The criminal justice system here in Illinois that seems to have turned into a revolving door. And it seems that it has just left victims in its wake. And we have an opportunity now to go back down to Springfield and talk in a bipartisan manner to see if we can get this right.
I'll just say no. I don't take it seriously from folks on the other side. I mean, they stood there with Kristi Noem and tried to use a tragedy for political gain while that person's mother was out protesting her. I just don't take it seriously. Meanwhile, we put a lot of investment in violence prevention that we've seen work. And so I believe that elected officials need to stop playing with fear. They need to understand that policies have not been working, and Illinois has made a shift.
These stories are horrific, absolutely horrific. And I would just circle back and say to Senator Peters, talk to the victims because they're out there, they're real. And, you know, people like Jennifer Boss who have said, I can't sleep at night. I have no peace. I feel like justice has not been served.
We have not yet discussed a response, and I can say that it's clear that the president really hasn't read any of the background or actually what's happened as a result of the law being put in place. People are showing up for trial at the exact same rate that they were showing up before, which is terrific, exactly what we had hoped. And most importantly, people who've committed violent crimes are being kept in jail more often and for longer than they were when we had cash bail.
We've been shut out of these negotiations for since I've been down there. We've conducted our own public safety working group on the Republican side, tried to bring our ideas. I've talked to leaders on the House Democrat side, you know, offered my help, you know, hey, please get me involved, use my experience. Let's try and get this right. I think this is an opportunity. Bring our caucuses together. Let's sit down at the negotiating table.
Okay. So finally, somebody, you know, who understands that victims matter, Patrick Sheehan, that as a representative, they matter more than criminals. Sorry, but Senator Robert Peters there, who's a Democrat from Chicago, he said he's tired of the debate. Poor guy. It must be so exhausting to have to defend a policy that's releasing criminals faster than Chicago politicians can collect lobbyist checks, okay? So they're releasing these criminals very, very fast. Of course, Governor J.B. Pritzker is a tremendous liar. People, I mean, you don't believe that, do you? I mean, open up your eyes. Crime is up across the board. People are living it. Okay, so JB can say that people are showing up to their trial all day long, but people aren't seeing that with their eyeballs, right? And Senator Robert Peters, he says oh, the Republicans are playing with fear. No, Senator, we're playing with the facts. Okay, the fact is, in Chicago, where they've had no cash bail for quite some time, they have for 13 years consecutively had the highest murder rate than any other state in the nation. Okay, so those are facts. Those are statistics. Fear is what families feel when the man that's arrested for stalking your daughter is already back outside her workplace the next morning because he was released on no cash bail. Okay, so the divide couldn't be clearer. Republicans protect people. Democrats say that they want to protect. They actually say it with their mouths that they want to protect the criminals. It's all about restorative justice and the whole idea. And maybe cash bail is not, the way to go. But here's what cash bail did and why it worked. It gave punitive ideology to the criminal justice system. There's a punitive aspect to the criminal justice system when you have cash bail. There has to be a balance between punitive and restorative justice, okay? And there has to be both. Democrats truly believe that there should be no amount of punitive or no amount of punishment in the criminal justice system. We should not punish people. We should restore them. And that's just not in Romans 13. That's not biblical, right? Romans 13, it says punish the evildoers. Okay, it doesn't mean that we commit human rights atrocities, okay, in our prisons. It doesn't mean that we don't treat people like human beings. However, there are consequences to your actions, and the Bible's all about accountability and punishing evildoers. Now, the president, enter Donald Trump, he comes into the arena and he signs an executive order and he says, no federal funds for jurisdictions with no cash bail. Illinois, congratulations, you've been put on notice. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he fires back and he says, Trump really hasn't read the background. Okay, I'm sure all you're reading, JB, is the menu and your donor list, okay? That's all you're pretty much reading, okay? So the truth is, the law has emboldened criminals and has demoralized police. Just take a listen to what law enforcement officials, people who are boots on the ground, what they think about it. Out of the 102 counties, I think it was 100 counties who stepped up and said that they didn't want this. Okay, so officers, they arrest someone, they do all the paperwork, and then before they even finish their shift, the same guy is back out on the streets. Imagine being a cop. You risk your life, bring in this drug dealer, bring in this carjacker, and then they walk free after posting bail or without even posting bail. So there's no punitive aspects here in the criminal justice system. And that's what is the problem. Maybe we can figure out something that is punitive that doesn't involve cash, or doesn't involve them having means. So that way it's fair for poor people and rich people alike. I don't know. But you have to have a punitive aspect in the criminal justice system. Okay. So when the drug dealer, the carjacker just comes in, walks free, that is not a justice system. That is a revolving door. So let's talk about what this means for you, the listener, the viewer, okay? Because laws like this don't just affect Chicago. The headlines aren't just in Chicago, okay? They trickle down. The repeat burglar who's out free, he's breaking into your neighbor's garage in Springfield, okay? He's out free on no cash bail, and he uses the opportunity of being out free to break into the neighbor's garage in Springfield. Okay, that's that domestic abuser who was released without bail. He's terrorizing his family in Rockford. There has to be a barrier. Okay, a punitive. This is a deterrent. Okay, the punishment aspect of the criminal justice system acts as a deterrent. Okay, so That domestic abuser who's released, he's out terrorizing his family in Rockford, Illinois. Okay, so this isn't just a Chicago problem. It's more prevalent in Chicago because they've had these types of policies for decades, for years, and it's gotten really, really bad there. Okay, if we let this continue, Chicago is going to be everywhere in the state of Illinois. Okay, so guess what? This also kills police morale. Sheehan, the representative there, Patrick Sheehan, he said it plainly. He goes, use my experience. Let's try and get this right, you know? So he's boots on the ground. He lives it. He sees it firsthand. Officers feel like their hands are tied. The politicians care more about virtue signaling than they do about stopping crime or deterring crime with punitive aspects. And we can't forget the victims, okay? The widow, the mother, the child, left wondering if justice will ever mean anything ever again. You can't build safe communities when the law protects predators instead of protecting people. So here's where I bring it to where the mainstream media won't touch, okay? Because they'll try to pitch it like, oh, Democrats are these virtue signaling, compassionate, empathetic people. Okay, here's a spiritual reality. Romans 13 says government exists to punish evil and to protect the innocent. When the government flips that, and when they reward evil and they abandon the innocent, that's not just bad policy, it's rebellion against God's design. Illinois' no cash bail system doesn't just, spit in the face of justice. It reflects chaos. Okay. And when there's chaos, that is the devil's playground. He loves chaos. Families suffer, children suffer, communities crumble. And when you remove consequences for sin, crime, and wrongdoing, you send a message that the law does not matter. Law does matter. And you can't run a state or a country on lawlessness. You just can't do it. But don't worry, our leaders assure us that it's all working out just fine. Governor J.B. Pritzker says the Illinois system is just fine. Yeah, that's not your reality. That's not what you're seeing. Senator Peters says that Republicans just need to stop, playing with fear. Representative Justin Slaughter says in the Center Square that his door is open. Well, that's comforting. So long as your door isn't kicked in by a criminal released under the Pretrial Fairness Act, I just don't get it. Look, these Democrats, they just want you to believe that releasing the accused criminal is justice, and it's justice for the criminal. And that punishing evil is unfair. They want you to believe that because they're anti-biblical, anti-Christian people, and they are trying to do the opposite of what Romans 13 talks about, what the role of government is. They think that protecting law-abiding citizens is outdated. And when you peel back all of the rhetoric, it's very simple. This is politics at the expense of public safety. And here's the question, Illinois. How many more Megan Bosses and how many more of those types of stories do we need to hear before we realize that the Pretrial Fairness Act is nothing but fair? How many more stories do we have to hear? How many more families have to be broken? How many more police have to lose their faith in the system and leave the force or police force altogether? Trump's executive order just threw gasoline on this debate. And I say good, because this is a fight worth having. I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about this press conference that Governor JB held. He's, doing ribbon cuttings as usual. And it's just really stupid. Corporate welfare. And he's doing this fancy little press release, $2 billion, 130 jobs, and a big ribbon cutting ceremony. Surprise, surprise, construction hasn't even really started for this company that's supposed to be there. It's a fertilizer company. And don't get me wrong, everybody needs fertilizer. Okay, farmers need it. America needs it. Food doesn't grow on political promises. It grows on the backs of men and women who work the soil. Okay, but here's the catch. Governor J.B. Pritzker patted himself at this farm show. So it's the Farm Progress Show. And from what I heard, he was kind of snubbed at this thing in Decatur. While he was there patting himself on the back for handing out corporate welfare, essentially, real farmers are saying, Governor, you have done nothing for the agricultural community. You are not a friend of agriculture. So we're going to be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.
Sometimes God stops you cold, not with a whisper, with a punch to the soul. Saul wasn't looking for Jesus. He was hunting Christians. He had power, position, and a mission. Then God knocked him to the dirt. A light from heaven. A voice that knew his name. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? That moment wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was a spiritual ambush. God still works like that. He steps into your mess, interrupts your pride, confronts the man you've become when you're wandered too far. Maybe you're building your own kingdom. Maybe your fists are up, fighting battles God never called you to. Or maybe you're just running hard in the wrong direction. But then comes the voice, clear, heavy, holy. Why are you persecuting me? Jesus doesn't want your behavior fixed. He wants your heart surrendered. Saul didn't get a lecture. He got a mission. Get up, go to the city. You'll be told what to do. That's the way of real manhood in the kingdom. Surrender first, then orders. You don't need every answer right now. You need to obey the voice. Follow the light. Rise up off the dirt and walk the road God lays out for you. Some roads break you to rebuild you, and that's exactly what Jesus wants. You want to train like a warrior? You need fuel like one. Patriot Pump is clean, powerful pre-workout that won't let you quit halfway. Just like the mission God gives you, it's not about the hype. It's about the grit. Fuel up, lock in, get after it.
Hey, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about this. He's strutting around like a rooster in a hen house this week, bragging about a brand new fertilizer plant in Tuscola. Okay, so $2 billion, 130 jobs, a big ribbon cutting ceremony. Sometime in the future, because they haven't even really broke ground yet. There's been no construction on this fertilizer company, or this fertilizer plant. Now, don't get me wrong. Fertilizer, it's a big deal. Farmers need it. America needs it. Food doesn't grow on political promises. It grows on the backs of men and women who work the soil. But here's the catch. Governor J.B. Pritzker is sitting there patting himself on the back here at this Farm Progress Show in Decatur. And you've got real farmers, who are saying, hey, Governor, you've never really been a friend of agriculture. And they're right. Well, like, what makes Governor JB a friend of agriculture? Is it the high property taxes? Is it the estate taxes? Is it the regulation piled on regulation, green energy fantasies driving up electric costs? Our farmers don't need fertilizer from Tuscola. They need freedom from Springfield. They need deregulation. They need the estate taxes lifted. And they need the high property taxes addressed. So today we're going to peel back this shiny little ribbon on this fertilizer deal. We're going to peel that back, and we're going to talk about what's really going on. We're going to talk about the reals over the feels. We're going to talk about what's going on here. It's political theater. It's corporate welfare. And it's the forgotten names of farmers, specifically in Southern Illinois. So let's start with the governor's big announcement. Cronus Chemicals. Okay, so after more than 10 years of hemming and hawing, they are finally going to build a fertilizer plant in Douglas County, Illinois. Okay, so supposedly it's going to produce 950,000 tons of ammonia every year with carbon capture technology. Pritzker's words, it's a major win for our farmers, for the people, and for the people of Tuscola, and of course, our entire economy. This is what Governor J.B. Pritzker says in the Center Square. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Sounds really cute. Oh, major win for the farmers. Oh, so cute. But let's be honest, what is this really about? This is about tax credits and photo apps, okay? Cronus, they didn't pick Tuscola out of kindness of its corporate heart, okay? The kindness of its corporate heart. No. They picked it because Springfield and JB waved shiny incentives in their face, and he picks, again, winners and losers. He decides who wins, who loses, and he picked this corporation as winner. So the incentive, this is through the Economic Development for Growing Economy tax credits. They gave them all kinds of tax credits to this corporation. That means your tax dollars being drained out of your paycheck. Your taxes, they're being handed back to Cronus. Okay, well, your combine is, being taxed. Your farm is being taxed. Your property is being taxed. Okay, and they're being handed back to those taxes, Cronus chemicals. Okay. So Pritzker this isn't capitalism, by the way, this is cronyism. And I'm getting really pretty sick and tired of all the tax credits to all these stupid corporations that JB picks as like his favorites. It's like gambling, and specifically this company isn't even like an established company. Like they haven't even broken ground at this fertilizer plant that's supposedly supposed to give us 130 jobs for $2 billion in tax credits, by the way. So ridiculous. Governor J.B. Pritzker is bragging about this fertilizer ribbon cutting and what's happening in Southern Illinois. I'll tell you what, farmers are bleeding under, high taxes, over regulation. There is a Hardin County Republican chairwoman. Her name is Rhonda Belford. She leads it out here in this clip. She talks about property taxes being high, how family farms are at risk, estate taxes punish children for inheriting their grandparents' land. And she talks about the skyrocketing energy costs thanks to Governor J.B. Pritzker's climate agenda and his climate change religion that he's a part of. Let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
This is a major win for our farmers, for our people, the people of Tuscola, and of course our entire economy.
And the energy policies that have made electric and fuel and all of that more expensive have done nothing but hurt farmers who depend on affordable energy.
That is why business tax credits matter for our state. That's why I have promoted them since I became in office. And I'm so proud that we've been able to attract great businesses like Cronus.
Oh, sure. There have been plenty that have had to leave because we just don't have the business. We just don't have the funds. And it's, many are having to pick up and leave.
So there you have it. Let me give you a picture. That woman Belford, Ron Belford, she's in Southern Illinois, and she's a Republican. She says, when you drive through rural Illinois, you see signs in farmyards that Pritzker sucks. You see it, okay? And that's not me saying it. That's the farmers who are putting it right smack dab in the middle of their front yard, okay? And that's how forgotten they feel, okay? Pritzker sucks. And you have to remember that Hardin County, this is a Southern Illinois county, they're one of 33 counties that have already approved a non-binding measure to secede from Illinois. Okay, there's a certain amount of counties that have to secede from Illinois until the state has to take them seriously. Folks are fed up. They're literally saying, we want out of this state. Okay, and Pritzker would rather court this Cronus chemical company than court the people who feed America, who are the actual farmers. Okay, and this is cronyism. He talks about business tax credits. That's cronyism, not capitalism. Ladies and gentlemen, to the 2025, welcome to the 2025 Fertilizer Awards. Tonight's top prizes go to Governor J.B. Pritzker for producing the largest pile of fertilizer without ever touching a shovel. The runner-up goes to Springfield lawmakers for creating the most expensive manure in America, also known as the state budget. And a Lifetime Achievement Award to the Illinois taxpayers for being fertilized every year against their will. Okay, folks, you can't make this stuff up. Agriculture and God's design. Okay, so let's take a step back for a moment. Farming isn't just an industry, it is part of God's design. In Genesis, God put Adam in the garden and told him to tend and keep it. Agriculture is holy work, but in Illinois, the state has turned farming into a political battlefield. Instead of stewarding the land, the government burdens the farmer, and instead of protecting families, Springfield taxes them into extinction. So think about the estate tax. The farmer works his whole life, pays property tax every single year, and then when he dies, the state steps in and says, hey, we're going to cut off your legacy before your kids can even touch it. We're going to cut off part of your legacy, and we're going to take it from you. That's theft. That's Pharaoh. That's not freedom. Pritzker loves to say that farmers are the backbone of these communities, of our communities. But you don't protect a backbone by breaking it. Okay. So you can hand out all this money and, let's talk about this, the job myth. Okay. 130 jobs. Okay. Sounds great on paper, but then you really start to break it down. $2 billion in tax credits. So we're paying for that as taxpayers because they don't have to pay. The corporations don't have to pay. That's what a tax credit is. They don't have to pay taxes. So therefore you're going to wind up eating the cost, and you still have to pay, but they don't have to pay because Pritzker's his buddy, right? And he's decided that they're going to win in this state. So that's $15 million per job that we're paying for. So let that sink in. That's how much we're paying for these jobs. $15 million per job. That's how much the taxpayers are paying for these jobs. So I don't know about you, but that's not really anything impressive to me. We're paying that much money for these jobs. These jobs, they're not even going to really show up right away. Like I said, the fertilizer plant isn't even built. Okay, it's not finished. The officials say it's going to take 3.5 years. A lot can happen in that time. Okay, that's a long time, especially when you look at farming and what's going on right now. 3.5 years. That's a lot of family farms that are going to be sold off by then, that are being crushed by taxes. So how many kids are going to be moving to Arizona or to Indiana, Missouri, Kentucky to go find work and to go farm there, in that time period? So this is the classic bait and switch. Promise future jobs, ignore the present pain that farmers are going through right now. As long as you promise future jobs, then everybody's on board. The problem isn't fertilizer plants. I'll tell you that. The problem is the government playing kingmaker, picking the companies that win, and picking the farmers that lose. Okay, so they pick which companies win and which farmers lose. Real economic growth doesn't come from Cronus chemicals. Okay, it comes from family farms, small businesses, and communities free from government overreach. So Illinois, if they truly cared about agriculture, they wouldn't, do these corporate welfare handouts. What they would do is repeal the estate tax, the death tax. Okay, they'd slash the property taxes. They'd cut regulation. And they'd let farmers keep their profits rather than redistributing them to Cronus chemicals. Okay, that's how Illinois grows. Not with fertilizer plants, but with freedom and with deregulation. So here's where we stand. Pritzker calls this fertilizer plant a major win. But for who? Really, it's the company that wins, Cronus, who wins. Pritzker wins because he gets this fancy press release. Tax credits, they get all kinds of wins for getting the tax credit. There's ribbon cuttings, and who loses? The farmers in Hardin County, the farmers in Southern Illinois, the young people who are moving away and farming in Kentucky, Indiana, and Missouri. Okay, the families who can't keep their land. Folks, we've got to decide what kind of state we want. Do we want a state that is built on these photo ops and press releases and corporate welfare, or do we want a state where family, faith, and freedom are the fertilizer for our future? The Bible says in Galatians, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever one sows, that will he also reap. So Pritzker is sowing right now political fertilizer. And Illinois farmers know the truth. You can't feed your family with press releases. And, he's going to reap what he sows. He's going to realize that there's going to be a mass exodus here, and it's not going to be sustainable. And he's going to reap what he sows here. All right. That's going to do it for me today. I do want to talk about President Donald Trump really quick. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to talk about Donald Trump weighing in on the news of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. There was an engagement, if you guys hadn't heard. And it was a rather surprising response, but I'm glad that he gave the response that he did. It's kind of surprising given he and the pop star Taylor Swift, their contentious little history that they have together. So speaking to members of the press yesterday, Donald Trump was asked during a cabinet meeting. It was the longest cabinet meeting in American history, by the way. It was 3.5 hours. It was insane. He was asked about Taylor Swift breaking the internet, essentially, being that she married or is going to marry sorry, Travis Kelce. That's who it is. I know names. So he was asked about this, and the reporter had said this quote, "I have to tell you the biggest pop culture news of the year broke just now while you were in the cabinet meeting. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged. The world wants to know your answer, sir." Okay, so here it is. He's in the cabinet meeting, and he responds with this. Here we go.
To ask you a serious question, but I have to tell you the biggest pop culture news of the year broke while we were in this cabinet meeting. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish him a lot of luck.
Oh.
No, I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
I'm serious. No, to ask you a serious question, but
Okay, so he says she's a terrific person. Now, Trump labeling Taylor Swift as a terrific person. Whoa. I'd imagine the world is going to be melting down over that one. Given Trump and Swift, they have a bit of a history. So, and it all started kind of in 2018. If you guys aren't familiar, Taylor Swift, she decided that she was going to follow other stars and get political. So she actually denounced the Tennessee Republican during her Senate race, Marsha Blackburn. She endorsed her opponent in that Senate race, and she denounced Marsha Blackburn, Swift did, for things like her pro-life policy, pro-life voting record, and things like that. So all the woke reasons you could expect. Taylor Swift didn't like Marsha Blackburn. In response to that, President Donald Trump said, "I'm sure Taylor Swift has nothing or doesn't know anything about Blackburn," right? And he says, "Let's just say that I like Taylor Swift's music about 25% less now, okay?" And then in the 2020 election, Taylor Swift, she supported the then Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden. 4 years later, Trump actually correctly predicted that Taylor Swift would not endorse Joe Biden in 2024. And she didn't endorse President Joe Biden in 2024. He was right, given that, Biden was forced out of the running after his disastrous debate with Donald Trump. And then the Democrat Party anointed Vice President Kamala Harris. They slated her in as the presidential nominee. And then shortly after they slated her in, as you would expect, Swift, she did the predictable thing and she endorsed Harris following a Harris-Trump presidential debate. Now, that debate sucked. Harris was terrible in it, and the timing of Swift's endorsement kind of made it look like Democrats. They wanted a distraction after that debate had happened between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So then they released this, Swift Instagram post where the world could see it, the news organizations could talk about it, and in fact, I remember CNN was sitting there and they were covering it exactly as you would think, and it was a distraction, and they didn't talk about Kamala Harris's performance in the debate. They talked about the Swift endorsement. So CNN, rarely gets that kind of news that quickly. So it was definitely planned, the timing of Swift's endorsement, to try to distract people from the debate performance. And Trump famously, after she came out and endorsed Kamala Harris, he tweeted out and he says, "I hate Taylor Swift." Well, he posted on Truth Social and he says, "I hate Taylor Swift." Later, he spoke on Fox and Friends about the singer, and he said he likes Mrs. Mahomes much better. Mrs. Mahomes, Brittany Mahomes, that is the Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes' wife, Brittany, and she made headlines because she liked a Trump post, and she, of course, was on the defense. There were a bunch of leftist haters out there, calling for Brittany Mahomes' head, essentially. But he said, Brittany Mahomes, she's a big Trump fan. And he goes, I was not a Taylor Swift fan. You couldn't possibly endorse President Joe Biden. Okay, so he was talking about how I don't understand how she endorsed Joe Biden. I've never been a Taylor Swift fan. So they've had a battle, President Donald Trump and Taylor Swift. And Donald Trump said this about Taylor Swift. He says at the time, you know, how do you endorse Joe Biden? Like, how do you look at Joe Biden and how could he possibly endorse him? She's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for all of it in the marketplace. But no, I like Brittany. Brittany is great, and I like her better. So the president also took a jab at the Travis Kelce, her beau's team. Okay, Travis Kelce's boyfriend's team. It was a 22-40 loss in the Super Bowl, and this is what to the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is what Trump said. He said, "The only one who had a tougher night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift." He wrote in a Truth Social post. She got booed out of the stadium. MAGA is very unforgiving. That's what he put on Truth Social. Okay, so what does all this mean? I guess there's no more bad blood between Taylor and Donald Trump because he came out and he wished him well. But more so, I think that Donald Trump understands that marriage is a good thing. Marriage is something that conservative Christians, that is like a big touchdown, you know, outside of giving your life out to Christ, seeking salvation, making Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior, and publicly professing that. Marriage is a big touchdown for Christian conservatives. And I think that he knows that there's about to be a cultural shift here, a big cultural shift. And it's very exciting. I mean, look at what happened to Cracker Barrel within days of backlash. They changed. You know, that's not what happened with Bud Light. In fact, a lot of companies doubled down after the Dylan Mulvaney thing. Target, they came out with those tuck swimsuits, okay? And they created all of their logos to have pride flags in them. So I think that there's a cultural shift happening. I know Donald Trump sees that happening. Everybody sees it's happening. And instead of, you know, dividing and being divisive, he's, you know, really kind of being the bigger man. He's saying, yeah, I wish her well. She's a terrific person. And he's a great guy, a great player, you know, Travis Kelce, and I wish them all the best. And Christians, as conservatives, we should see this as a cultural win, and we should be happy that Taylor has, you know, abandoned this illusion that, you know, men are the enemy. Clearly, this war on men is over in her life because she is getting married to a man, and by all appearances, a masculine man. So, stupid white liberal woke female president almost ruined another company. Yeah, that CEO, the Cracker Barrel CEO, I'd imagine she like goes to a Peloton class every week and like drinks oat milk lattes. I don't know why, but she just looks like that type of person with the wide, like, or the thick rimmed glasses. Yeah, so my hope is that they, you know, don't do this whole diversity quota thing, and that they take all of the wokeness off of their website, and that they don't do any of the remodels, and they keep the decor, and they keep the menu. And I'd love to see them actually take the alcohol off the menu, because that's when I really think Cracker Barrel started to go downhill, and shift towards this, you know, trendy, you know, millennial draft beer burger joint kind of like vibe. You know what I mean? I think that's what they were going for. And we have so many of those places. Why go after Cracker Barrel? Why go after this iconic restaurant? This is a traveler's rest point, and there's no reason for the alcohol. I think they need to get rid of the alcohol. So I'm glad that you're commenting. Appreciate you guys. Muslims are evil. They do very evil things. Yes. We talked about this Valentina Gomez. She had a flamethrower and she burned up a Quran. Everything she did there was not anti-Christian. You'll have a lot of leftists come out and say, how is this Christian? Aren't you supposed to love your enemy? Love isn't necessarily always empathy and laying down on your back and letting the enemy kill you. Okay. David killed Goliath. She mentioned that in her campaign video. And she said very specifically, I think she did this deliberately. She said terrorist Muslims, they can F off. Okay, she's talking specifically about the people who cause terror and hurt others. In some cases, like very much with the Safety Act, Loving your neighbor and loving your enemy sometimes looks punitive, okay? Locking people up because they're a danger to themselves and others, or bringing a radical Muslim terrorist down in the form of war, so that way they cannot eradicate an entire population, okay? That is sometimes justified, okay? And sometimes that is an act of love where you're trying to cause less harm to others. And she just simply said that, hey, you know, the Muslims, they can leave Israel alone. They have 57 other countries. Why do they need Israel? Why do they need to eradicate the Jews? She was just very clear about her beliefs, and she made a stance. And you know, good for her. I don't think that it was wrong in any kind of way. I think that she stood on her faith, and she said that, hey, she actually came out and said, quote, there is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel, and that's just the truth. There is no Allah. It's fake. All right. I appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, share this out, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. This has been the Conservative Cat Show.